Alright, so I know this video is probably titled something a little comedic, like the absolute state of FGO JP right now, but things are starting to get a little ridiculous over there, so much so that I'm starting to see some comments pop up about it. People on my stream are starting to take notice of it, and I've even gotten a couple of DMs about it. They're like, hey man, have you seen the 9 billion servants that are going on right up on JP? And I'm like, yeah, I literally can't go 2 days without getting a data download thinking like, hey man, is this a new part of the event? Nope, just a new gacha banner, and they just keep throwing them out there. And now I do have maybe a little bit of an interesting take on this, but the idea of doing something like this I don't think is necessarily bad, and I kind of wanted to bring it to the community's attention and kind of give my take on it, because while I think this process of bringing a lot of these limited servants back around isn't bad, I think the implementation of it is not very good optics, I would say. Like, it doesn't look exactly good, and I'll kind of explain what that means in today's video. But before we begin, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for that sweet daily FGO content, as your boy is going to make sure that you are informed of the goings-on both versions of the game, as I am doing right now. And if you want to see me play FGO live, I do that every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so make sure you peep that Twitch link, which is down in the description down below. But let's start talking about this. So, on the one hand, I think bringing back all of these limited servants is a very good idea, because let's say you are like a new player, you just go through Lost Belt 4 for the first time, and you just happen to download the game just a week after everything for Lost Belt 4 resolved and was done for, and you're like, man, that Arjuna altar guy, he was really cool, he seems real strong in game, I can't wait to pick him up. And then your friend has to tell you, well, you're gonna wait 2 years because that's a limited servant and they rarely bring people like him back, especially when they're as good as he is, right? That can be very annoying if you're a new player, because FGO has an overabundance of limited servants, right? So much so that you really have to wait a long time for them to usually come back around. And that was a huge problem. Like, you would start the game and you're like, all right, who's the best servant in the game? It's like, oh, Castoria is crazy. She makes one of your art servants just like the most nutty people ever. And you're like, okay, when can I pick that up? You're like, I don't know, man, it's going to be a long time. Better hope to get them on the New Year's GSSR, because they ain't coming back for like a year. And you're like, great, I have to play the game suboptimally, quote unquote, for a year because I can't pick up the servant because they're not all that readily available, right? And so that can be very annoying as a newer player, which is why I think the idea of bringing back all of these limited servants, especially on different banners, is not a terrible idea, because instead of having them all be on different rotational banners, they're all kind of available at the same time. You don't have to wait for, say, like, Scotty to rotate out for Jalter or something like that. Like, you could just kind of go for them immediately if you really want someone, say, like Scotty, because you're like, man, I have all these cool quick servants, I want to use them at maximum power. I need Scotty. Oh, look, she's just readily available. I can go after her. And I think the idea of bringing back a ton of limited servants for different celebrations, or even as we have for this current event that's on AP right now, they're bringing people back, like, say, Huion and Baiken, because they're kind of relevant in the event. They're bringing them back around so people have a chance to summon for them, and they don't have to wait, 2+ years for them to come back, because I think we can all agree that's a little bit ridiculous. Where I think this is kind of bad is that they don't do this all the time. Like, I love the idea of bringing back a ton of limited servants all the time, because let's say you have someone like Gilgamesh, like, that's my favorite FGO servant, right? Or just my favorite Fate servant in general, but since he's a limited servant, I have no idea when he's going to be available. So the fact that they've been kind of making, say, someone like him more available, I think that's a good idea. Make these limited servants more available for people. Where I think it's kind of bad is that since they don't do it all the time, and they only do stuff like this right before something big is about to drop, because keep in mind, JP's anniversary is like 2.5 weeks away, and now they're dropping all these servants. The fact that they don't do it in any regularity doesn't make it feel like it's a gesture of goodwill to be like, hey, we're gonna make these limited servants more available for you guys because we don't want you to miss out on your favorite characters. It more seems like, hey, anniversary is gonna be coming up, we're about to drop something hype, can we try to drain everybody's Saint Quartz as quickly as possible before we drop this new banger servant, allegedly for the 8th anniversary, right? It makes it seem more greedy. Like, if they did this for every event, right? If every event brought a couple of limited servants back as well as the new servant, I think that's a great idea, because if you're not interested in whoever the new limited servant is or whoever they decide to bring around, then at least maybe one of the returning limited guys would be pretty hype for you. Like, maybe that would be more exciting. And I think that might have been a good idea, but they just don't do it like that. They just don't handle it like that, and it comes off very greedy, which is why I can understand people like messaging me being like, man, FGO JP and by extension Lasengle is looking real greedy right now, because this kind of looks a little off, right? When you see this many limited servants just all flooding your game at that same point, you're like, dude, this seems like they're really just trying to nab everybody. And realistically, they probably are, because anniversary is right around the corner. So I think it's a good idea to make these limited servants more available for people, because, you know, if you're a new player, you're probably playing for some specific limited servant. I'm sure everybody in the comments could sound off for a limited servant that they started the game for. I started playing for Jalter, for instance, right? And so if I didn't have access to her when I started playing the game, you know, I was kind of like, I don't really want to play. I'm just going to wait for her to come back around. And so, like, I'm sure everybody could sound off on somebody that they wanted, that they started playing for. And if you miss them, who knows when they come back around, because FGO is not super, like, forthcoming about who's going to be coming back. And especially with the two companies kind of shifting, a lot of the scheduling and when guys will be returning is kind of thrown a bit out of whack. And we do get surprise banners. So good idea. I think it just feels really greedy in its implementation. Now, I'm going to mention another gacha game. I'm sorry, I've been playing it a lot lately, and I kind of like their approach to limited servants, or not, I guess, technically, but operators, right? I'm talking about Arknights, right? They have a very select core group of limited guys. All of the other operators, if you're like, hey, I want to start playing for Surtur because she's really good, or I want to start playing for the normal Scotty, most of them are available just like on most banners, or you can like recruit them for free even if you get lucky with your top operator tags. Lord knows that's a whole endeavor and a half, but at least you have a chance to try to get them for free. And then there's a very tight-knit group of limited servants, and some of them aren't even like the best servants in the game. Some of them are really, I'm calling them servants still, operators, sorry, we're looking at FGO and I'm trying to give an example from a different game, sorry, you have to excuse me. But these operators, like, some of them aren't even like the best guys in the game. They're just more limited people, or they're like for a collaboration event or something, and they come out every couple of months, I would say, and then they also bring some of those other limited guys with them. So you're like, okay, since there's kind of like a small group of limited people, I can expect that like 2 or 3 of them will be accompanying this new limited person. So even if I don't care about the main limited guy that's coming back around, I can still try to go for one of the other ones, and I can also pick them up with these like points you get for doing your gacha pulls and everything. So I think that's a really good idea. Unfortunately, FGO is a little too far in to their game at this point. They can't really just stop producing limited guys, because even if they did, way too many limited servants, right? Like, it's impossible to try to collect most of these guys because you have no idea when they're coming out. There's just way too many of them. And then you also got like story lock guys and everything. So that's why I like the idea. I like the idea of just kind of bringing all these guys back around so that like newer people have a chance to get them, but it just looks really greedy. So I can understand a lot of the concern that some people in the community have. They're like, dude, there are like 9 different banners on JP, and I'm like, yeah, but like in practice, not bad, because there's too many limited guys. You need to bring them back in some regularity so people have access to them. But you know, if you're only going to do it around like New Year's or anniversary, then it doesn't seem like you're on the side of the player base. It just seems like you're trying to be really greedy, make a lot of money, and drain everybody of their Saint Courts, right? That's kind of how I see it, right? If, again, they did this for every event. Imagine that Gilfest comes back around and they bring back everybody that's relevant for that. They bring back, like, say, Ishtar, they bring back Gilgamesh, Tesla's story log. But you guys are okay, you know what I'm saying, right? They bring back Ereshkigal, right? Maybe she's relevant for like Gilfest 3 or whatever in this hypothetical event. You start bringing back all these relevant people. And sure, you could throw someone like Enkidu on there, even though he's not like limited, right? You could throw him on there. That's perfectly fine. But I think if you did that for every event to kind of be like, yeah, we're going to like bring back some of these limited servants so they're not as rare, good idea, just very greedy implementation. But let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below, because I've been seeing more and more people start to slowly talk about this, because they're like, man, I just keep looking at the news every day and there's just another person on Raid Up. Like, I woke up this morning and I was like, dude, Huion is on Raid Up. I was like, I swear, like 2 days ago, I just saw Biken going on Raid Up. I'm like, it's getting ridiculous, right? But I'm like, I understand, right? You know, good to bring these guys back, just very greedy implementation. But I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Leave me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace, late guys.